you all in today's session. It's once again we are talking about one of the most important aspect in the new challenges and strategies and whatever is happening in today's economy, particularly the concept of fintech. We will discuss fintech in general and in African context, different challenges, strategies, and whatever the current situation is. So I hope we will have a great session today. Let's briefly talk about that what we are covering in today's session. We will start with fintech.
If you allow
We
me
will,
to jump in real quick, I sincerely apologize, Prof. If you would
yeah,
hit the F5 button on your computer or just, go to the horizontal menu and start the presentation so that we don't have to look at all the slides together.
all right. Yeah, is it fine
There we
now?
go. Yes, thank you very much.
All right. So we are talking about today's session fintech. Particularly, we will talk about fintech in African context, different challenges, strategies, and whatever is happening in today's economy. This is our agenda, the content for today. We will talk about basic general fintech, the eruption in Africa, what are the key trends in digital expansion? Since fintech is financial technologies and digital expansion is there, what are the key markets and growth areas? And what are the challenges the African fintech organization and companies and countries are facing? So this is all about we will cover in today's session. I hope we will end up with a good discussion at the end of the day. So basically, if we talk about fintech industry in Africa is blooming and it's critical inflection point since that is there is undergoing a significant structural shift and its financial services landscape. We will see that the cash still dominates 90% of the transactions, but the number of tech startups tripled between 2020 and 2020. So this is the starting point of where fintech have started emerging, and we see that the tech startups, the fintech industry, the industry that is linked with fintech, financial technologies, there are different applications, there are different networks, there are different countries, companies they are coming in, and that have tripled. Like it was there is a significant growth you can see in terms of growth of these fintech institutions and fintech industry, and they are being in fintech industry. Now this is the African fintech landscape. There is a very explosive growth of fintech. Now, fintech is the fastest growing startup industry in Africa. We have to come up with this thing. And why we claim this thing that fintech is the fastest growing startup industry in Africa? The revenues that were estimated was 4 billion to 6 billion in 2022. We are talking about the revenues in fintech industry. So that shows there is a huge, you can see the more revenues are generated. So it's mean the fintech industry is growing. There is an explosive growth of 6 billion dollars, their revenue from 4 billion to 6 billion in 2020, and the penetration rate, that is the starting penetration rate of 3 to 5% on par with global leaders. How we can say that this is par with global leaders? That the global leaders in fintech industry like the China, the Vietnam, the American countries, they achieve the similar penetration level, just like Kenya is doing a very high in terms of how they are shifting towards fintech. So Kenya is, and their revenues could grow eightfold to reach $30 billion by 2025. That shows that fintech industry is have a exceptional growth, and very we can see the penetration rate that is in line with at par with global leaders. So that is not like fintech in Africa is not up to mark, but it is like in competition. And the customer value, what is the basically the customer value in that industry? The fintech solution are provided highly valuable, offering transaction and services that are up to 80% cheaper and saving interest rates that are up to three times higher than those of traditional banks. So this is the customer value. This is the key USP, unique selling point, where fintech industries and solution, they are basically, this is the main reason that how this fintech industry is replacing the conventional system of financial technology or financial services. So that is how the cheap cost and the less interest rate are the two customer value that attract customer, and they are moving towards these fintech technologies and fintech industry and financial technology. So this is the highlight of whatever is happening in today's fintech landscape. And further, there are a lot of market opportunities. There are lot of market opportunity. Let's say the financial services market addressably by fintechs was valued at $150 billion. Like this is a huge amount in 2020, and it's projected to grow annually by 10% to reach approximately $230 billion market by 2025. So there is a huge market opportunity. At the same time, since we have seen the penetration rate is high, we have seen that there are customer value, the less interest, the cheaper cost, so that creates a huge market opportunity. This is how it is $1 billion economy can be shifted to $230 billion economy of that fintech industry. That shows a huge market opportunity for the new startups, for the young startups, that how, and this is the why, this is the main reason that why we can see a huge market revenues and huge market penetration. So that is the market opportunity where fintech companies and fintech industry is capitalizing on, particularly in African context. What is the main driving force? The driving factors, the growth is fluented by trend. Now, how? Like the one thing is like, okay, we are sure that there is a market opportunity, there is growth, but what exactly is basically making people to shift from a very conventional system to a very digitalized financial system? And that is basically the recent trends, the increasing in smartphone ownership that we have seen over the period of time, that smartphone ownership, the people who are using these smartphones, that is rapidly increasing. And the next important thing is declining interest cost. This is really very over the period of time. If we compare today's in 2025 internet cost way back in, let's say, 5 years or 10 years before, we can see the internet cost is has been very low. Okay, so this is why people are shifting towards they are using internet, they have an access to internet. And the third important thing is young and rapidly urbanization of population. The people are shifting to urban areas where people have more internet access, they have more up to mark living standards. That's how they are shifting towards the smartphone and new technologies. So that is basically the driving force that helped people to shift from an industry, to shift from a conventional system to a very tech based, technology based financial system. And not last and the least, the COVID 19. This pandemic has accelerated the shift towards digitalization. We can see the new terminologies, new platforms, new things. So just because of COVID 19, since during the COVID, during the lockdown process, everything was shifted to technology. So that was basically the main role through which people have now realize that technology is very important and they have to shift. And that is how that is basically driving a shifting people towards more technology than before pandemic, right? So these are the few driving forces that help people to shift towards fintech technology. and the key markets. But this fintech is active across the continent, the whole African continent, and particularly 11 markets, 11 key markets, including the Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa, the centers of the evolution where high fintech industries they are take place, where market opportunity is high, where more people have shifted, where the revenue of the companies has increasing, and that accounting for 70% on African GDP, half of its population. So these are the key markets, and particularly they are leading this region in terms of fintech industry. So this is about the African fintech landscape. So we have discussed the market opportunities, the driving forces, and key markets in that context. Moving forward, like if we look into this graph, just take a 1 minute and just go through, we can see that fintech across African 54 countries. Although this is not uniform across 54 countries, there are ups and downs, there is more, but the fastest growth per annum. If we have seen this fastest growth per annum, we can see Ghana has 15% growth per annum, per year, basically, followed by West Africa, Francophone with 13%, and then we have Nigeria and Egypt with 12%. And 11 key markets that we have already talked about, they hold 70% on African GDP and 50% of the population, Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, and so on. So these are basically the key markets. And if we talk about the opportunities, we can see the traditional banking countries like South Africa and Morocco, and in smaller packets, e.g., B2B lending, bank to bank lending, and business to business lending as well. Then mobile money specialists like Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, and Uganda. They are the countries who are known for their mobile money specialists. They're like easy. M-Pesa and all these mobile money specialists, they are working in these regions. So how they are basically working? They are innovative solution. They are providing innovative solution rather than formal financial services. So we have traditional banking countries, we have mobile money specialists, and then disrupted markets like Nigeria and Egypt for B2 business to customer sort of things. And then crossroad markets that influence the share of financial innovation, the Cameroon, Cote, and Senegal, etc. So this is how different fintech, in terms of their opportunities, in terms of their uh, growth, and in terms of key markets. How this fintech eruption in Africa has explored. So we start with a market. The African fintech industry is blooming and maturing. Despite there are political and economic challenges, and global pandemic has uh, generally affected these countries, but the fact is basically the fintech industry is blooming, in despite there is some political and economic and even technological changes these African regions are facing. And this explosive growth, the number of fintech startups has tripled between 2020 to 2022. We have seen that 5,200 companies they have started their businesses in fintech industry. So that shows that how this African growth is there. And we can see that revenue has increased from 4 billion to 6 billion with a 3 to 5% penetration rate. There is very massive potential. 10% transaction being digital in Africa. This is how, okay, like if we, with about only 10% of transaction being digital in Africa, it's mean that there is a huge market. There is a huge chance that We have to explore, we have to include the rest of 90% population in this thing. So in terms of potential, only 10%, although people are there, but sorry, but 90% market is still there. And if the sector can achieve a similar penetration level, just like the Kenya is having, the fintech revenues could grow by 8 times to reach $30 billion by 2025. So this is how fintech is basically having a very you can see the potential of the market, a huge potential in this particular region. They are providing very valuable solutions. This is the key thing, that how fintech is basically have a very explosive growth and generating huge revenues. The fintech techs are providing significant value with transaction solution up to 80% cheaper. So this is how a traditional market and this fintech industry is different. So people are saving their times, people are saving remittances costed, and their banking service traditional charges, they are saving all these things. So this is basically help people to shift towards this fintech industry. This is the overall penetration, the estimated penetration rate with terms of revenue. We can see that there is a very developmental growth. There is a huge growth in terms of fintech industry from 3.8 times to now it's now 30.3 billion over the period of time. So we can see whatever the different countries are there, an African region, excluding other than Ghana and Kenya, is basically the leading in that domain. And with a penetration rate, we can see the highest penetration rate is basically the Kenya, followed by Ghana and rest of the African region. So this is how, in terms of both, you can see there is 8 times higher since that was started in 2020. We can see, if we can see this graph, there is an 8 time increase, 8 time higher, 80%, like 800 times high growth rate within this time period. And we can see it was 2.5%, then 5, 8, and 13% penetration rate. So that shows, all these statistics shows that whatever is happening in African region, it's really very productive, very growth is there, and a very significant growth is basically there. So moving forward, the key trends. So basically, financial inclusion is one of the most important strong push for financial inclusion. As government and financial institutions develop policies and products to serve the larger unbanked population. How whenever we talk about the banking and fintech, so we need to understand one main difference about banking and fintech. Banking is very professional, very you can see documentation is involved. More people think that that is very official sort of way of putting your money in different accounts, opening a check, opening an account, writing a check. So people usually avoid these sort of you can see the formalities, the procedures, the formal procedures. When we talk about fintech industry, that use different organization, different businesses, different mobile apps, and all these things. So it's not limited to only banking sector. We have to understand this thing whenever we talk about unbanked population. So they are not like, they are not going for the banking sort of thing, but they are basically relying more on informal banking. Fintech is basically, we can say, the informal banking system where not that much formalities required, documentation required, procedures are required. So this is how the financial inclusion is basically playing a very important role. And same time, at the same time, these government and financial institution, they are developing the policies and products. They are very, like you can see, they are very easy to adopt. People can easily shift to that, whatever the financial technology, and things are moving in a very good direction. That is one of the key trend that financial inclusion is basically contributing towards fintech industry. And then the structural shift. The financial services market in Africa is undergoing a structural changes, that there are new regulation, new like whenever we talk about the traditional financial system to a very digitalized financial system, new rules and regulation, new things are coming on. So all these things are making it that this market is now getting a structural shift and towards that organization. Then the one of the most important thing that why African region is basically shifting towards these things we have talked about before, but the demographic shift. The demographics are very important in African countries. How we can see the highest population growth rate is 2.7%, and a median age of just 20 or more, like 20, the people at 20, like the, I'm not saying the teenager, but in between that time period, they are more familiarized with the technology, they are more familiarized with these fintech adoptions and all these things. They are more since they are young, they have more like they are mainly they are using mobile phones, smartphones. So they are somehow getting those information. That is the real thing that is shifting towards these things. If we can see this young urbanization, and more than 1 billion people are expected to live in urban areas by 2045. So it's mean the future is that urbanization will be more, and urbanization is a very key thing, that how the people in urban and rural areas, how they have different in terms of their living standards, the adoption rate, the shift towards and any adoption is very high in this region. So these are the key things. And this young urbanization population is digitally savvy and represent a large, fast growing customer base. So this is how the market potential is there, the future is there. This is how fintech industry is going to be let's say if we can see or predict something in 2024, 40, 25. So there is a huge shift of fintech industry. That is why the fintech in Africa is getting is growing more rapidly than other regions. That is how market penetration is more in this region as compared to or in par with the highly developed countries. Their demographics, their these things are very different. And one of the most important thing is digital penetration. People have shifted from 2010 and 2019. 300 million people in Africa came online for the first time, right? But that shows the digital penetration is already there. Instead of financial digital penetration, instead of they are using financial products, they are using other online services. Maybe they are using for the chat purpose, they are using for playing games, they are using for any other businesses, B2B and B2C businesses, or whatever the purpose. So people have shifted, and 300 million people in Africa came online for the first time. So this that shows the shift is already there. And since like in COVID-19 pandemic further accelerated the shift towards digitalization, online learning, online banking, online transfer of the money. So all these digitalization, because of pandemic, there was lot of online education like Microsoft Teams and Zoom. They got like a huge response from the community after this COVID-19. So that is how The increased digital penetration is basically working there. And then surging investment. Startup funding in Africa grew by 200% between 2020 and 2021, the fastest rate of any market. That how startup funding is basically growing, and why we have seen the multiple reason. And fintech accounted for more than 45% of this funding, so it's mean the new startups, the focus is basically the fintech industry. And we have seen that why this is surging investment, why a huge investment is taking place. We have seen the increased digital, we have seen in the last different key trends of African region. And the consumer spending. Lastly, private consumption expenditures in Africa is forecasted to grow steadily at a 4.8% compound annual rate (CAGR) until 2025. So these are the few important things. They are basically how this is how the key trends are there. And we can see this funding for African startups. We have seen there is a huge increase since this is the total amount of funding in $1 million. And then 2015, how it has accelerated over the period of time. So there is a 45% increase, and overall there was 18.5 times. You can see the out of funding, the fintech funding is 45%. So from 2021 and onwards, we can see the 50% or more than 18.5% more investment is now in fintech startups. These are the CAGRs, cumulative average growth returns. Whatever the industries are getting returns, we can see the different things. But we have seen that blockchain and crypto 50%, wallets, online wallets 20%, wealth management organization, fintech industries, remittances 6%, payments 20%, accounts management 10, insurance 8, and retail smart and medium enterprises lending is 6%. So we have seen that wallet, these blockchain, these cryptos, the wealth management, these are basically the measure. And all obviously the remittances and payments, they are all representing fintech industry, and there is a huge growth in terms of returns. Now, there are key challenges for fintech companies. The 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 not limiting to these four or these five, but the regulatory constraints are still there. Regulatory constraints. We will talk about one by one. The difficulty in attracting investors. Although we have seen that investors are attractive towards this, although we have seen that there is a huge potential is there, but only we have seen that there is only the banking unbanked population is 90%. And still there is in financial inclusion, digital literacy, financial literacy issues are there. So difficulty is attracting investor is one of the key thing, and we will talk about different frauds and other things. They are basically adversely affecting the investors during this fintech companies. And one of the key thing that is limited understanding about the product, about the services. If I go back to my last slide, so if I ask you these, how many, let's say these are the different sectors of fintech industry: insurance, account management, payments, remittances, wealth management, wallets, and blockchain and crypto. And if I ask you how many people, just imagine how many people are they have a knowledge of this, or they have practically involved in blockchain and crypto sort of transactions. How many people are having a digital wallet? How many people are using fintech based wealth management practices? How many people are using remittances? Although payments like M-Pesa and mobile payments, they are mostly people are doing this, they are practicing these things. But very for the other things, for that there is a very limited access. So this is how the limited understanding about these fintech products, these since they are very new and other products, that makes a key challenge for fintech companies to to make people understand, to make them digitally literacy, and in order to increase the financial and digital literacy at the same time. So that is the limited understanding from population, from a community, from a general investor perspective. That is a key challenge for these fintech companies. And then the security challenges, not least, but this is the most important security challenges. When you invest, you always concern about the security. When you lend, you are concerned about security. When you borrow, you are concerned about security. Whenever you are investing, so, and obviously there are few fraudulent activities, there are few scams are there. So security, due to these things, I will share some detail that due to these things, the mostly people, they are not that much relying on these industries. So these are the key challenges for fintech companies.
Morning, you ladies and gentlemen. You are with Atlantic International University and you are following this wonderful presentation about fintech finances with Professor Syed Qasim.
Yeah, I'm big. I'm big. Sorry. So, we were talking about the challenges and limited addressable market. In some region, the number of the variable customer is restricted by infrastructure, such as weak mobile and internet penetration. The weak mobile, there is limited access to internet signals and all these things. So that lacks in formal identification and limited payment rails. Like only three of the 11 key markets in Africa have the necessary payment rail infrastructure for real-time payments. So this is one of the key challenge that is faced by this region. Now, this is really very interesting that at the same time we are talking about that uh, fintech is getting stronger and fintech is growing and all these things, but this infrastructure in terms of weak mobile and internet penetration, limited access to mobile, the limited access to internet, this is one of the key challenge that is faced by fintech industry. Obviously, there are some regions where we have overcome these things, but still there is a lot of space is already there. There is low customer monetization. It is challenging for fintech to build profitable business and models, since we have seen this is that why people are shifting towards fintech industry. They are giving you a very 80% cheaper cost. So if a fintech industry is giving you a 50% cheaper cost, so it's mean their profitability is somehow compromised. Obviously, like as compared to digital or as compared to non-digital or conventional financial institutions, there is low disposable income and customer loyalty. And the document states that with similar investment level per customer, it is almost four times harder to achieve profitability in Africa than in Latin America and other things. So since the we have seen this is one of the advantage, but at the same time from a profitability perspective, if you are providing an 80% cheaper services, obviously your profitability is basically going to affect adversely affecting basically. And then the customer acquisition cost. There is low customer loyalty. Why customer loyalty is low? That we have seen the trust deficit is there. People are not relying that much on this fintech industry. This low loyalty is crucial for fintechs to find ways to reduce the cost of acquiring customers. So they are investing huge in terms of acquiring customers. And the financial regulatory framework across different African countries are very fragmented and very complex. That makes again one of the key challenge fintech faced by fintech in Africa. And the fintech industries and technology, they find it is very difficult for them to ensure business continuity. Let's say if there are frequent changes in the framework, in regulations, in all these things, the compliance become very issue. And then compliance across market, multiple markets is again is a challenging issue. So rather than a very comprehensive framework for these all regulatory framework for digitalization or fintech industry, the very fragmented framework is basically adversely affecting these industry. And then there are rapidly changing regulation bodies and their enforcement. They keep very, since we understand that in fintech industry is basically at a very early stage in terms of these regulation, since the conventional financial system, they are in operation since centuries, right? Then their history is more than 100 years. And fintech industry is very young in that sense. So there are very few new changes, new enforcement system. It is in a very, you can see the progressive sort of market. So obviously there are few changes. In some cases, fintechs are moving faster than regulators and creating new set of challenges. So at the same time, for regulator, for practitioners, and from all these aspects, this rapid changing regulation environment and these rapid changing and technological since that is technology based, so it's really affecting adversely these region. The currency fluctuation, another challenge. Currency fluctuation. Entrepreneurs, investors, they exposed to fluctuating exchange rate and strict foreign exchange controls, which make it harder to maintain consistency across the African region. The currency fluctuation, obviously, if we invest in different countries, if we invest and the currency is fluctuating, so at the end of the day, if your currency has depreciated against the investment other currency, so obviously on that currency fluctuation you are suffering losses. Instead you have earned a different profit in your business. Okay, so that's it. This is one of the real challenge that this region is facing. Unlimited funding. Although we have seen that fintech investment in Africa as a record in 2020 as compared to other funding, but especially the later stage startups, about 70% of fintech deals are financed by foreign investors, and mostly locally financial deals are for early stage startups. So the venture capitalists are not that much coming up to this fintech industry. And then talent competition. Fintech face the challenge of attracting and retaining skilled talent. Why this issue is there? About 50% of African software developers, so they are only concentrated in just 5 countries. And there is a significant brain drain at ICT, internet communication technologies. Professionals seek better opportunities abroad. So they are moving. This is not particularly in fintech industry, but in all technology based industries, this is a biggest challenge. This, since these talents are getting, we cannot retain a talent like this. They are overly moving, and for the moving, since they are best technology based, they have the access, so they are rapidly shifting from one industry, from one country to other country, from one industry to another industry. So that make a one of the biggest challenge to retain these skilled talent, the people, the managers or whatever the people they are within your organization. One of the biggest challenges, lack of governance. We have seen, irrespective of fintech industry, but generally in general, the lack of governance. The document notes that lack of robust corporate governance that hinder fintech ability to navigate an unnecessary environment and achieve sustainability. That really we have seen over the period of time that if governance system is not, and particularly the corporate governance system is not up to mark, it will affect your sustainability of and create an uncertain environment for the investor, for the startup companies, for fintech industry, for general public, for consumer, for customer, for investor, and all these stakeholders they are adversely affecting. And then the compliance. As fintech evolves, it is vital that they have a well developed compliance foundation. Obviously, compliance is very important in all the industries and to actively manage regulatory challenges and fuel of regulation. So, this is again one of the most important thing in terms of now this is one of the biggest issue, the mobile money fraud typologies, account opening and theft, others, agent assistant frauds, social engineering frauds, SIM swaps, and all these things. We have seen that in different categories, these mobile money frauds are basically happening. In percentage, we can see the agent assistant. Fintech is basically mostly agent assisted frauds. The industry that have more agent based, assisted based businesses there. And we have seen that the money frauds, the fintech industry related frauds are very high. So that shows that this is one of the biggest issue. And we have seen the account opening is not that much, but agent assistant and SIM swap and social engineering is causing more. And this is one of the biggest issue. And how this is happening, if you know these different challenges, and if you know these things, that OPay or PalmPay identify account frauds in Nigeria that happened, where fraudster created accounts with fake stolen IDs, and they have used different tactics like SIM swaps, account farming, weak know your customer loopholes, and they have lessened that stronger know your customer and national ID integration is required. But a lot of fraud have been happened in Nigeria through these schemes. And then Flutter Waves security breach and legal dispute in 2022, $5.5 million frozen in Kenya on money laundering allegations, although they are denied by the firm. In 2023, they lost like 24 billion in unauthorized transfer, recovery orders, and fired. Further breaches of reinforcement and security, cyber security gaps, and all these things. And then CBN directives to pursue ongoing CBNC and all these things. So all this shows that the frauds are the uh, account frauds and other legal breaches, legal disputes, and directives are basically have really affected. These are the key frauds. This is the one of the biggest challenge. You can see the unauthorized POS transactions. It happened in 2023 in Nigeria, then a security breach of 2024 in Nigeria, and we can see the type of the fraud and estimated losses. $24 billion estimated loss in Nigeria due to POS and technical glitch transfer. The second one, the security breach in 2024 in Nigeria, about 11 billion or 7 billion million US dollars. And then the other First Bank internal fraud of Nigeria 2023, internal employees fraud theft, where 40 billion or $29 million have been So OnePay, Kenya, General Digital on Fridays, so lot of other events that have affected the trust deficit among these region. So what is now the strategies that we need to match proposition of the market. We have to successfully fintech adopt their solution to the specific needs of the market, where different people are there. And there must be users acquire users quickly. The most successful players build their success on a quick acquiring a large base of active user. So if you increase your active user, your customer, so obviously you can get a very winning strategy, and you can overcome whatever the challenges that the low profitability or low penetration. And clear monetization strategies must be there in order to increase a healthy revenue and a good revenue. Low RPO, average revenue per user. We have to adopt to low ARPU in order to increase your pay as you go model. And then you have to solve the offline market as well, where the 90% of transaction are still cash based. So if we can capture this thing, we obviously can solve the offline market and can grow the building agent and network and the client base and all these things. And we have to engage with regulators in order to come up with the key characteristics of successful fintech significance, and in order to increase. So this is all about the challenges, the issues, the current structure. So this is the all about now.